Hello everyone, Sonic Blur here, and today I will be doing the Sonic Timeline video that I've been talking about before. I know I did a live stream about it, but I just wanted to make it a cohesive timeline for people to get a grasp of what was all said in that video, and yeah, I just wanted to make a quick, maybe not quick video, discussing on this timeline video and how it makes sense to me. But yeah, I'll probably see some gameplay here in the background so I can collect my thoughts here. But yeah, so obviously we start off with Sonic the Hedgehog 1. Clearly that's the start of the franchise, but I wanted to give a quick overview on every other thing basically. So here we go. So I wanted to put it in a story format so it makes the most cohesive sense narrative-wise. So I had a cohesive timeline here, and it goes as follows. So for my timeline video, I started with SegaSonic The Hedgehog because in the manual of Sonic the Hedgehog 1, I don't know if I'll put it up there or I'll just read it off, but it states that Sonic had met Eggman previously. He already knew who Eggman was prior to the events of Sonic the Hedgehog 1 in the Japanese manual. And I'm going to take to account that the Japanese manual is the correct manual to understand Sonic the Hedgehog. So I'm going to go with that understanding that Sonic the Hedgehog 1 is the Japanese manual is the correct manual, and that they've met sometime previously. And the reason I put SegaSonic the Hedgehog here is because we know Mighty and Ray show up later in Sonic Mania and all that, so it makes sense that they would show up sometime earlier. And I like the idea that he knew Mighty and Ray before he got, in Sonic, he met Tails or Knuckles, because we know that that's jam-packed already with so much stuff already. So yeah, SegaSonic the Hedgehog being the first in the timeline. If people that don't know, SegaSonic the Hedgehog was a arcade Japanese exclusive game, but the reason I include it in here is because they do feature, it's the introduction of Mighty and Ray, which we do know is canon in Sonic Mania, so I thought I would add that as part of the timeline. So basically my story starts off with a mad scientist, Dr. Eggman, starts, going around thinking about how he wants to conquer the world and all that, and just thinks about how he's going to be able to do so. And then he stumbles upon basically this lush area filled with animals and cohabitats and islands and a bunch of stuff, and he starts exploring. And we know he's an archaeologist, kind of like Gerald was, because I'm assuming that maybe he was very inspired by Gerald Robotnik, his grandfather, and he wanted to be an archaeologist and a great scientist like him, like he said in Adventure 2. So I'm going to assume with that understanding that that's why he also kind of started exploring these islands just like Gerald did. But for some reason, somehow, he ends up creating this island known as Robotnik Island. He founds it and then starts capturing animals to experiment with, because he wants to be able to make robot slaves out of animals, but he doesn't know how to do that yet. So he ends up capturing Mighty, Ray, Sonic the Hedgehog, and unbeknownstly making enemies out of them. Little does he know that these superpowered creatures will be able to not only superpower his machines, but he's wanting to experiment on them. But they end up escaping from prison before he can do so. And so Mighty, Ray, and all of that, Sonic, thwart his evil plans, and they both go their separate ways, becoming adventurers, just like Sonic said in the Tails tube. Sonic said that they're basically adventurers like him. So I would assume that that's where he gets the idea or the inspiration to also become an adventurer. Maybe he inspired Mighty and Ray to do so, or maybe they inspired him to be an adventurer. Either way, they go their separate ways, and then that's when Dr. Eggman mad because they basically thwarted his evil plan. And Sonic the Hedgehog 1 starts capturing innocent little flickies and birdies and all these different kind of animals and starts putting them into robots. Due to the Japanese manual, basically from Master System and the original Sonic the Hedgehog 1 16-bit, I'm just going to assume the 16-bit one is the canon version of the story and not the 8-bit version, even though they're basically the same thing. But yeah, I'm just going to assume that that the 16-bit versions are the de facto canon, and just leave it at that, basically, because the 8-bit games do raise a lot of questions on timeline and kind of make a little bit like less sense timeline wise where they would like fit into this timeline. So yeah, I kind of put it here. So I would say that so yeah, they're basically living on a distant island and all that, and basically they discover that Sonic eventually discovers Dr. Eggman, aka Dr. Robotnik, is stealing his animal friends that he made along the way on South Island. So South Island is not Sonic's home. Sonic's home is not anywhere anymore. He left his home, Christmas Island, and started traveling the world. Sonic is known for a lot of things, but Sonic is mostly an adventurer seeking to find whatever adventure might come his way. He's okay with making friends, but Sonic is mostly an introvert. People often don't misunderstand Sonic. Like, he likes friends, he likes having friends, but he's not mind doing things on his own, you know? Sonic is a very introverted kind of character. Sonic doesn't care about having lots of friends. He doesn't care about if they follow him or whatnot, But obviously, if he has friends, they're going to have to be able to keep up with him because he is very fast, obviously. So people like him will have to run really fast and be able to keep up with him. So basically, the Japanese manual states that on a crisis one day, visited the island Dr. Eggman and his crew on the island, and having heard the rumors that Eggman was on the island, Sonic goes to discover it. I'm reading from the Japanese manual in case people don't know, and then. Hearing the rumors, Sonic goes to investigate because he learns from the local animals there that Eggman there is up to no trouble. And so basically he hears this from his animal friends and decides to go and learn more about that. Hearing about the harassment, it's like, obviously Sonic jumps to their aid. And then Eggman, you see Sonic... This time is different. I turn the island's animals into robots. And everyone, Sonic shouts? Everyone, he then follows up with. They operate how I see fit, he says. In other words, your enemies are all throughout this island. These robots are throughout all these islands, and now I, the great Dr. Eggman, will conquer South Island with the power of your friends harnessing these machines. So basically he's describing his evil plot here to Sonic. And Sonic, obviously not happy with the news, basically says... one of the animals says, "How terrible, Sonic! Go and save all of your friends, Sonic!" And then Sonic rushes off to save his friends, his adorable little animal friends that he hopes to one day save. And so yeah, pretty interesting story, and fits really well with even the Sonic Origins intro, where we get a glimpse of that, where an animal warns him about what's going on. Sonic rushes off to the next adventure, but it doesn't go into full detail, but it's basically the same plot, just a little bit condensed, I suppose. But yeah, that's where it starts off. Then obviously we have the events of Sonic 1. Sonic goes through Green Hill, Marble Zone, um, and then all of these other zones. And then eventually he winds up in Scrap Brain Zone Act 1. Now in Scrap Brain Zone Act 1, he just, he decides that he's going to take matters into his own hands. He's going to go straight for the Doctor. Because he's had enough of Dr. Eggman's shenanigans. And so, yeah, he said, I had enough. I'm going to go straight to Dr. Eggman and give him my what for. So, yeah. That's what Sonic ends up doing, is he goes right to Dr. Eggman and gives him its what for, basically. And, yeah. And of course, I ended up dying there. He winds up back. Dr. Eggman presses a switch that sends Sonic down to basically what he thinks is his death. But eventually, Sonic winds back up, where he was before this all started. And he gives Eggman his what for, which, he winds back up in Scrap Brain. And yeah, this boss fight is a little tricky, so I can't imagine Sonic is having much fun during this time. Oh, yeah. Eventually, Sonic ends up defeating Dr. Eggman and thus saving everybody. Sonic runs through Green Hill Zone once again and then releases the Chaos Emeralds, which then disappears after filling the entire zone with flowers and freeing all of the captured animals. So yeah, Sonic ends up saving the day and all that shenanigans. So basically this manual is kind of wrong, but not really. But basically is along the same lines, but I'll read you the Japanese manual for comparison. So above Never Lake, a beautiful celestial body known as Little Planet is visible for only a single month every year. Just before the planet makes its latest appearance, a pink hedgehog named Amy Rose is reading her tarot cards. This is kind of like described in the Origins intro as well for Sonic CD, where we see her playing with her tarot cards. Like I said, the Origins cutscenes are almost very one-to-one faithful for what's going on, but the manual gives you just a little bit more detail. But then eventually with her Amy Rose playing with her tarot cards, the tarot cards tell her she'll eventually meet her true love, aka her knight in shining armor, very soon in the face of danger. As her cards fly away, Little Planet, pristine as always, appears above her. The planet, also called the Planet of Miracles, is also the place where the time stones, mysterious stones that allow one to control time freely, rest. The time stones can cause such as a desert becoming a jungle and polluted jungle becoming a beautiful lake. Nothing more mysterious than events that exceed time. Moreover, he sets his eyes on it, the infamous scientist Dr. Eggman. The planet where the time stones rest, the Little Planet, will be the perfect fortress, Dr. Eggman says as he anchored a Little Planet over Never Lake, starting to build a giant fortress. Then, in order to achieve his ambition of world domination, he started to mobilize to obtain the time stones. Meanwhile, Sonic, who knew nothing, went to go see the Little Planet, which is the intro cutscene we see Sonic in at the beginning of Sonic CD. He didn't know anything, and then once he gets on top, he says, "What? Sonic just arrived. How convenient," Dr. Eggman says, having heard this report, wore a fearless smile as his eyes shone. As Sonic ran, what he saw was the horrible sight. Little Planet had become fixed to a chain extending to a rock, and he looked closely. There was the face of Dr. Eggman on the rocky slope. "That Eggman," Sonic said. "This time I'll twist and crush you with my scientific power. Then I'll gather the time stones," said Dr. and conquer the world. Oh ho ho. Lying in wait through the eerie laughter, there was a blue flash lurking in Dr. Eggman's shadow. Sonic had easily defeated Dr. Eggman's positions before, but will he be able to free Little Planet before him? he can conquer the world. No worries. If I have courage, I can do anything, Sonic says as he runs off, heading for basically the intro, which is Palm Tree Panic. So yeah, in the intro cutscene, it basically sums pretty much all this up, but there's definitely dialogue that wasn't in the intro cutscene, which I think the intro cutscene looked basically is more of a show don't tell, but I don't know. The Japanese manual does give a little bit of insight about Sonic and Eggman's thoughts going into this confrontation, but obviously, eventually, ending up in Palm Tree Panic, Sonic learns that he needs to destroy the robot teleporters in the past and secure the time stones before Eggman does. As he continues his adventure, however, he meets Amy Rose, the female hedgehog from earlier, who had come to Little Planet, who predicted her future. But upon seeing Sonic, Amy instantly falls in love because of what her tarot card said to her. But Sonic, not really reciprocating Amy's advances at the moment, more focused on the mission at hand, tries to continue with his adventure. Anyways, so this is to basically say he runs into Amy in Palm Tree Panic. But little does he know that he'll see Amy after this. After encountering Eggman, forcing him to retreat, Sonic continues onward to Collision Chaos. This is where, with Amy following him, but then not realizing it, Metal Sonic comes out of nowhere. Basically, Metal Sonic is a lethal robot created by Dr. Eggman and for Sonic's image. The first of many robots Dr. Eggman will make. He basically takes Amy and kidnaps her. So basically, Sonic continues onward throughout Little Planet, overcoming and defeating Eggman and his contraptions, and also being able to defeat or destroy the time machines and collecting the time stones to be able to save Little Planet. And then eventually Sonic arrives on Stardust Speedway. This is where he finds Eggman and Metal Sonic, who challenge him to a race. And then Sonic obviously wins that race, with Metal Sonic being completely destroyed. And then afterwards, Sonic frees Amy, who hugs him as a thanks. After saving Amy, Amy follows Sonic to his next destination. Sonic then goes to Metallic Madness, and eventually gets to the very, very end, where he ends up destroying Dr. Eggman's egg spinner, and then saves Little Planet in the process. He saves Amy, and they both go off together. And he saves Amy, but then leaves her on Little Planet. Landing near Never Lake, Sonic leaves Amy in a safe place and runs away before noticing the shell covering Little Planet leave behind some sparks in the shape of Sonic's face. Amy Roan leaves the islands, and from then on, I added a little note here. From then on, when we see Amy, she doesn't end up joining Sonic on his adventures most of the time. But until basically Sonic Superstars, we had thought that she moves to the city and then eventually meets back up with Sonic later. But I guess Sonic Superstars kind of retconned that out of existence. So I guess she eventually does that. But I guess when she's classic Amy still, she is still tagging along with Sonic until she becomes her modern counterpart, and then that's when in Sonic Adventure we see her basically going to the city and Station Square and all that. But that'll be another video for another time, when you will see Amy again. So 16-bit, basically Sonic 2 is next, and what describes Sonic 2 is what follows up from Sonic 2 is a manual that describes Sonic and Tails meeting. The reason I don't have any of the 8-bit games is because it just makes it more confusing. In the 8-bit game, Sonic and Tails already know each other, but in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 16-bit, they don't know each other, so it's a little strange. But the Japanese manual goes something like this. One afternoon, Miles found a beautiful plane on the beach of West Side Island. Miles, who loves machines and vehicles, started running and approached its side. A smart boy with wings that could draw sharp lines while admiring the aircraft. Miles walked to the other side and stopped his legs moving if he were shocked. Sonic, taking a nap under the wings of the plane on the other side. Then Miles gently turned around and returned to the other side of the aircraft again. A flash of light shimmered in the forest. What followed was a massive explosion, a pillar of fire rising from it, likely to be blown away. Miles rolled under the plane, eyes fluttering as he took to the situation. Reflected in his eyes was the forest burning red, robots digging up the ground and looking for something. The explosions continued without stopping, and the flames covered the island. Miles, staring at it dumbfounded, felt someone's presence and turned to the side. There was Sonic, glaring at the burning forest. "That Eggman!" Sonic kicked up some sand at the same time he muttered this, heading off to the forest. Something had just begun, an absurdly dreadful thing. While captivated by a hunch, Miles unknowingly started to run and chase after Sonic's back. Dwa-ha-ha-ha! With the forest came to the echo of the vulgar laughter that get used to. It was him, Dr. Eggman. "I finally found it. The island where the final Chaos Emerald sleeps, the elusive West Side Island. Ah ha ha! I'm glad I chased Sonic. Now my ultimate weapon, the Death Egg, shall be completed. I'll be waiting, Sonic. This time, I will beat you and gather the Chaos Emeralds. Then I, Dr. Eggman, shall rule the world. Da ha ha!" Now Sonic and Tails have assembled together. The adventure of excitement now starts. Basically, the gist of this Sonic Japanese manual is that it also continues to include that one day Sonic was running around and then he stumbled upon Tails, who was basically Miles started chasing after Sonic, and eventually the two become really good friends ever since then. So this happens basically right after these explosions and all that, and Sonic goes running around. Tails discovers he can fly, and with the help of Tails, his tail's flying, he can keep up with Sonic. So that's how Sonic and Tails met. Making their way across West Side Island, Sonic and Tails free the mini-zones from Eggman's control. They also meet the Doctor on many occasions, but also defeat him. Once the island is free, they take the skies in the tornado to reach the Doctor's fortress, the Wing Fortress Zone. However, as they arrive, the vessel later shoots the tornado, forcing Sonic top on the aircraft and continue onward without Miles, and the tornado fell from the sky. Later in the control room, Sonic encounters Dr. Eggman and thwarts his evil plan, but right before he's able to make a complete stop, Eggman takes off in a space rocket ship, blasting away. Tails arrives in a repaired and modified tornado just in the nick of time to give Sonic a ride, just the leverage he needed to go and eventually grab hold of the space rocket and heads to into space with Eggman, and then eventually arrives on the Death Egg. On board the Death Egg, Sonic meets Mecha Sonic, another robotic copy that he used after the destruction of Metal Sonic. He rebuilt Mecha Sonic, but eventually he's able to destroy him as well. Sonic finds Eggman and chases after him, but the Doctor quickly escapes into his final end-all to be-all, the Death Egg robot. Prepared to destroy Sonic with it. After a heated battle, Sonic manages to destroy the Death Egg robot, which triggers a chain reaction that causes the entire Death Egg to explode. This prompts Sonic to leave the Space Fortress by jumping into space, falling down to the planet. Tails decides to take up the tornado to save Sonic after seeing the Death Egg explode in the sky from the ground. As Tails flies through the sky while accompanied by Lockies, the bird Flickies, and many more animals follow suit. Sonic, who is transformed into Super Sonic, appears and flies alongside Tails and the Flickies, following behind him. Now moving on, after completely wrecked from the Sonic 3 manual goes into some detail, and then I'll put insert some details in here later that I think make more sense. So, the Sonic 3 manual, after the adventure of Sonic 2, says that having completely wrecked in Sonic's last adventure, Dr. Eggman's fortress, the Death Egg was now starting to fall to the ground. Now, apart from the Death Egg falling out of the orbit closer to the ground, a huge cloudy mess was floating by, and a huge shadow hit the quietly within the cloud, towering mountains, expanding forest. The shadow was an island. It was a huge floating island drifting through the air. The Death Egg, which had become a fireball, crashed into the floating island. Mountains crumbled and the forest were knocked down. The tremendous impact greatly tilted the floating islands, gradually lowering its altitude. Then, finally, the floating island collided with the surface of the sea. A giant wave, a tsunami, swelled from the floating island, but it did not sink. At the bottom of the sea, the floating island held the Death Egg together. The huge figure kept lightly above the sea as if nothing happened. Dr. Eggman's scheme. Dr. Eggman, who escaped from the crashed Death Egg, noticed that there was another Chaos Emerald on the floating island. He caught it from the cracks on the earth opened up by the Death Egg, a huge Chaos Emerald reaction. If he used that energy, it would be possible for the Death Egg to take off and return to space, he thought. In order to get his hands on the emerald, Dr. Eggman built a base on the floating island at a rapid pace and launched Base Zone. Then he kidnapped the animals, remodeled them into robots, transformed the floating island's nature into a more harsh one through its environment change machine. Dwahaha! Sonic's too late to come to this island. This time the Chaos Emeralds in the world will be mine, Eggman says. And then we get introduced to Knuckles, the guardian of the floating island. So his bio says just something like his name is Knuckles the Echidna. He's a Knuckles who is an echidna, who is his island friend. Call him Knuckle or Nux. To him, who was born and raised on the island, all of the island's nature and animals were his companions. And the one who protects the companions is the crystallized column of the Chaos Emeralds, aka the Master Emerald, called the Pillar. So, this, they basically describe the Chaos Emeralds and the Master Emerald as basically him the guardian of, but we later learn, or retconned, or whatever, we later learn that actually, no, he's just the guardian of the Master Emerald, but this Pillar is where the Chaos Emeralds used to be stored. So this is basically where, in Sonic Adventure, we see those pillars where the Chaos Emeralds used to be. Those are what the pillars were used for. So those are the Chaos Emerald pillars, but he's no longer the guardian of the Chaos Emeralds, if that makes sense. It happened quite suddenly one day. So this is describing him basically before and his role, and now we're getting into more of how this pertains to what's been going on with Eggman. It happened quite suddenly one day when Knuckles tried to see if there was something wrong with the Chaos Emeralds. When he thought the Chaos Emerald sparkled and shone before his eyes, it started to vibrate abnormally. The bewildered Knuckles had never seen such a phenomenon before. The Master Emerald continued to vibrate violently before his eyes, and then when the vibration had reached its peak, a flash of light flickered with kin sound. Knuckles' recollection, like it was a cut short, when he felt like his body was softly floating at the once the sensation stopped. This is actually talking about when the Death Egg fell from the sky, This is talking about when the Death Egg fell from the sky, like was mentioned before. Stunned, Knuckles left the altar and went on a walk. Then when he piously turned the gaze far away, he noticed something creepy had emerged near the lake. Knuckles, who saw that it was a giant round egg-like object, felt his spine chill a little bit. That egg is the dragon of legend. The egg appeared in a legend depicted in the Chaos Emerald altar. There was no doubt it was the egg that could bring calamity to his island. So, I have a lot of theories about what this large egg is referring to in the Japanese. I don't know if this is an adventure that is referenced later on. I don't know if the Dragon of Legend is considered Chaos, the god of destruction, or it's referring to the dragon in Sonic Superstars. So, because I was thinking about dragon bringing calamity. Is this actually the purple dragon we see in Sonic Superstars, or is this like is he mistaking Chaos for like a dragon? I'm not too sure. But anyway, for the next few days, he encountered a familiar man in the woods. The man called himself Dr. Eggman. When he learned that Knuckles was the guardian of the island's Chaos Emerald, because he thought that the Master Emerald was just another Chaos Emerald at the time, he told his story. I am a scientist who came here to investigate that island, to investigate that egg. If you're the guardian of the Chaos Emerald, then there's something I must tell you. To be frank with you, there's this bad hedgehog called Sonic who interferes with my research. And it seems as if this guy is after the island's Chaos Emerald, Dr. Eggman said. The Master Emerald is being targeted, Knuckles said in rage. Alright. Through Dr. Eggman's skillful lies, Knuckles has been fooled. A few days later on the island, after far away where the Death Egg and Floating Island collided, Tails, the two-tailed fox, had caught a powerful Chaos Emerald response that suddenly started with the jewel radar he had invented. Maybe this has something to do with a big tsunami recently. Seeming to feeling that way, Tails went to the beach where Sonic was. Around that time, Sonic, who was taking a nap on the foreshore of that time, had found a ring drifting on the sandy beach. The small ring was something that seemed like an ancient character's carved onto it. Sonic took it. Remembered an old legend about a certain island. A long time ago, where the island was still a part of a continent, there lived a peaceful civilization, an excellent civilization. The civilization, through the power of a certain Master Stone of Power, had built a peaceful and prosperous society. But at some point, the elders who tried to take possession of the stone's power's energy accidentally made that energy go rampant. The civilization has destroyed in an instant, erased from history. Now, this is a reference. Well, not a reference, but this is a foreshadowing in the Japanese manual to the events of Sonic Adventure. So we see this event actually happen in Sonic Adventure when basically Dekal is basically warning the Chief about not to use the Chaos Emerald's power, and then we see Chaos actually destroy this ancient civilization that we now know is actually Knuckles' civilization. But it's actually cool to see that basically this is it's cool to just see that, you know, this is actually very in line with the story here with that they're going for. It almost seems like that there was a contentious idea in Sonic Adventure to take the Japanese manual and kind of make it its own. So, I mean, you wouldn't understand it. It's a callback to this if you didn't read the Japanese manual. And that's why I say the Japanese manual is important to the story, because in Sonic 3's manual, that's when we get the idea of, oh, there's a civilization that was destroyed by a Master Stone of Power, but then they were wiped out from existence, and then because something happened, they tried to take the stone's power's energy, and then made it go rampant, and then eventually it destroyed their civilization. This is referring to Chaos, basically. This is 100% referring to a foreshadow to Chaos coming in Sonic Adventure. Then after this event, the gods of the heavens flew down and restored a part of the civilization as an island, and the Stone of Power was thrown into the wide open sky, or so they say. So this tells me that because of the incident that happened with Knuckles and his civilization, the reason basically they came back and restored part of the island and part of the civilization as an island. So they came back and actually restored part of the echidnas, which eventually leads to Knuckles. So that solves the problem of, oh, why is Knuckles the last of his kind? Why is Knuckles even alive if this happened hundreds of years ago? This started their decline, but it didn't completely wipe out the echidnas in its entirety. Because the gods, I guess, referring to Chaos, restored part of the island and the Stone of Power, and was thrown into the wide open sky. So this is what it means, is that it started flying due to basically what happened with Dekal and her people. That's when the floating island became the floating island. The reason it floats in the sky is because of the gods coming down and restoring the island and its civilization. So basically they're like cursed, I guess, to like float in the sky, and that's why it's called the floating island. The drifting ring in the legend of the island. Sonic, who felt nostalgic for some reason. That's literally what it says. Sonic, who felt nostalgic for some reason, decided to go on an adventure again. So Sonic and Tails hop in the tornado to travel to this island, unknown of what lies ahead of them. Arriving on the floating island with the tornado, Sonic uses the 7 Chaos Emeralds he had acquired prior to turning into Super Sonic and begins exploring the floating island while Tails tries to follow. Shortly after arriving, though, Knuckles pulls off a cheap shot on Sonic from below, which forces Sonic to transform, drop the Chaos Emeralds. Knuckles proceeds to take the Chaos Emeralds before leaving. So Knuckles is the one that scatters the emeralds. Sonic and Tails make their way through the island, dealing with Eggman's various attacks and Knuckles' antics along the way. Eventually, Sonic and Tails arrive at Launch Base Zone, Dr. Eggman's base, where he has almost completed the rebuilding of the Death Egg. At the end of this zone, the Death Egg is ready to take off to reach the space station. Sonic and Tails hitch a ride in the Eggmobile nearby, but Knuckles keeps them from proceeding with it. Fortunately, local tremors causes Knuckles to lose his balance, fall down from the pillar he is on, allowing the heroes free passage. In the end, the duo manage to jump onto the Death Egg just as it starts taking off. Hero Bot turns to defeat the two with the big arm robot, but then eventually it's eventually becomes his undoing as he gets defeated. When Sonic defeats Eggman once more, the battle has already taken its toll on the Death Egg, turning a critical point of its launch as the platform Sonic and Tails are standing on falls apart, plummets to the floating island while the two watch from afar. And then, trying to fly away into space, Dr. Eggman's greatest fortress, the Death Egg, crashed back to the ground by Sonic. Sonic, partying with his buddy Tails, who was thrown into the air himself, was swept away by the wind right into the forest of the floating island, overgrown with huge mushrooms. So this is actually the Sonic and Knuckles manual. So apparently, originally, Sonic and Knuckles were split apart, but I'm assuming now that that's been retconned because of Origins coming out, saying that 3 and Knuckles is indeed canon. I would venture to say that Sonic and Tails don't actually part ways here. But I would venture to say that Sonic and Tails don't actually part ways here. And then it says, although Sonic checked to see the form of the Death Egg crash in the volcano from the air, he wasn't just realized the Death Egg had not been completely destroyed. Making his mind up once again, Sonic tries to start running to the Death Egg. Knuckles appeared from a door in the bush. Disappearing from the forest while carefully watching the area, waiting for Knuckles' presence to disappear. When Sonic went and pushed something that looked like a switch in the front door, dazzling light overflowed from the inside the opening door with a thrill. Then Sonic, looking inside the door, saw it reflected in the eyes, a shining special ring, a super ring. What on earth is this ring? Sonic said. Sonic couldn't resist its curiosity. For the moment he touched the mysterious super ring. With a high-pitched sound, Sonic was blown into an unfamiliar place. That space, it was a hall he had never seen before. Built in the dust-free hall was an altar with a solemn atmosphere hanging over it. As soon as he looked over to the altar, Sonic involuntarily made a noise of surprise. In the center of the altar, a huge Chaos Emerald had been called the Master Emerald was enshrined. What exactly was the altar? Just what was Knuckles doing here? Sonic thought. The hidden mystery of the legendary floating island and Dr. Eggman's plot and the confrontation between Sonic and his biggest rival. That's right, the adventure of Sonic the Hedgehog had only just begun. And then, returning to Mushroom Hill, Sonic eventually uses Robotics Flying Battery Zone to go to Sandopolis Zone. From there, he ends up in the Lava Z Zone, where the Death Egg is. However, the Space Fortress quickly uses its eye lasers to reactivate the volcano in an attempt to stop Sonic. Surviving this change in an environment, in spite of the odds, Sonic soon finds himself in the Hidden Palace Zone again. There, he has a showdown with Knuckles. After Sonic manages to defeat Knuckles, the two witness Eggman attempt to steal the Master Emerald. And I'm assuming this is with Tails as well. So this is Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. witnessing this. Knuckles attempts to stop Dr. Eggman as he flies away with the Master Emerald and the Death and the Egg Mobile. Eggman quickly gets away after he electrocutes Knuckles with his Egg Mobile's electric cords. Realizing he had been fooled all along by Eggman and that Sonic has actually been trying to do good, Knuckles takes Sonic to Sky Sanctuary Zone with a warp point. There, the two see the Death Egg successfully relaunch itself. With Knuckles too tired from the beatings he has received, Sonic goes on without him to stop Eggman. As he runs through Sky Sanctuary Zone, he has numerous encounters with MechaSonic. This is MechaSonic Mach 2. This is the rebuilt MechaSonic from Sonic 2. A robot created by Eggman. Yeah. However, Sonic manages to defeat the robot in each of an encounter and succeeds in catching up to Eggman and getting on board. With the Death Egg having made it into space, Sonic and Tails blast through Eggman's numerous contraptions throughout the Death Egg. After overcoming Eggman's Death Ball, controlled by Eggman himself, Sonic gives chase to Eggman, who ends up boarding the giant Eggman Robo, a mech powered by the Master Emerald. After Sonic destroys the mech, a chain reaction is triggered throughout the Death Egg that causes the entire space to crumble and explode. Sonic destroyed the Death Egg, however, Eggman tries to make one last escape with the Master Emerald and his final weapon, and in response, Sonic transforms into, well, Hypersonic, and pursues the Doctor into the Doomsday Zone. After defeating Eggman, Sonic and the Master Emerald fall down from the sky, but then are saved by Tails in the tornado. Afterward, the duo returns to the floating island and gives Master Emerald back to Knuckles. The floating island will then start to float into the sky once more, and Sonic and Tails take their leave in the tornado. So, there you have it. Sonic 1, or Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic 1, CD 2 and 3, all in one big package. But yeah, there's a lot more stories to tell. There's the Knuckles portion. There's Sonic Mania to cover. There's Sonic Superstars to cover. Sonic Triple Trouble, which I will say, but this is the first part of my classic Sonic timeline video. Part 2 will feature basically the rest of the classic timeline leading up to the events of the Adventure era of games like Advance 1, Adventure, Sonic 4, all that good stuff. So yeah, if you enjoyed this, please leave a like, comment down below, and have a gosh darn good one. Peace out, Sega and Sonic fans, and have a gosh darn good one. See ya. Bye-bye.